Mic check one, two.
Yo, get out of here with them ass shoes, yo.
Balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
What's up, Balls Deep fam, to another episode of Balls Deep with Devin and Jovan. I believe this is episode 30 of season 2, so we're at the big 3-0. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about baseball. We haven't talked about baseball in some time. This is the first baseball episode of the 2021 season. Last time I recall, we talked about baseball was during the off season, and I don't know if you know this, but one of our off-season baseball episodes is probably one of our best in regards to the audio. And when I mean that, like those that tune in via just audio and not video, so through any other platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, it's amongst the most popular that we've had. So episode 6 of season 2. So it's titled "Take a Hint." And I believe in that episode we were talking about, the problems the Mets had amongst the organization, and then Francisco Lindor going to the Mets and things of that nature. But we're at like 80 something downloads for that one episode. I believe it's 83 downloads. So it's our most popular episode to date. And we're worldwide. We're global. I mean, there's downloads. We got 28 downloads from Brazil. We got 22 from the United States, 11 from Germany, and on that episode alone, and the list goes on and on. But it seems like the fans want to hear some baseball, and that's what we're here today for, just to provide some baseball knowledge.
Definitely. I enjoy talking about baseball, especially when the Yankees are doing good. They're starting to get hot, so maybe it's the perfect time to start talking some baseball. But I enjoy talking baseball. It's definitely one of the more fun sports to go watch. When we're especially when we're getting in the big moments of things, starting to get into playoffs for baseball and stuff, and later in the season, baseball is one of the more exciting seasons. So I love talking some baseball.
Yeah, we're about 50 games into the season, give or take some games, and I'm excited. You mentioned it already. The Yankees are starting to get hot. They started off on a rocky start, so it wasn't looking too good. But I was optimistic because it was still early. But I'm excited not only because of that, but I'm going to a baseball game, and it's crazy to say this. With the year that we've had due to the pandemic and everything like that. But your boy's getting vaccinated. I already got my first shot. I'm gonna get my second shot before my birthday, and I'll be all set and ready to go on my birthday to go to a Yankees game. And what's crazy, it's gonna be limited capacity the day that I go, but starting July 1st, it's gonna be full capacity. So maybe we have some more Yankee games to go to throughout the season, but this is just the first of many. It's the first, not only game but event that I will go to in some time. I know we got many Giants games to go to this offseason, or not this offseason, this upcoming season, especially with MetLife just announcing that it's full capacity. So the world is coming back to, being normal again. Especially if you're vaccinated, because you just look at the NBA playoffs, they have the vaccinated section, and then they have the non-vaccinated section. You want to be in that vaccinated section. It's a lot more live.
I saw the two photo comparisons of both. It was definitely pretty funny, but for sure, if you're not vaccinated, go get that vaccination. I'm probably gonna end up getting mine soon. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was against it. I obviously wanted to see how everything went. But at this point in time, if you want to do anything in life, like you're gonna need to get vaccinated. It's either that or you need to provide a negative test. And at that point, you're better off just getting vaccinated. So I'm not pushing vaccination on anybody, but I do recommend it for those tuning in. Especially if you're a sports fan, if you want to go to the games, this is the perfect opportunity to do so. With the world opening back up, but we're here to talk some baseball. And if you don't already know, this is Balls Deep, where we talk about the hottest stories in sports. And right now, we're about to talk about the hottest teams in the MLB. So the MLB.com posted, as of this recording, I want to say 1 or 2 days ago, the most recent power ranking of the MLB. And the top 5 teams were: 1, the Padres, who hold a record of 30-18. 2, the Red Sox, that hold a record of 29-19. 3, the White Sox, that hold a record of 27-19. 4, the Dodgers, who hold a record of 29-18. And 5, the Giants, with a record of 28-19. So my question to you, Jovan, is what are your thoughts of this top 5? Do you agree or disagree with it? And if you happen to disagree, which team do you think deserves to be in the top 5, and who should they replace?
So I will say this: whether I don't know who I'm replacing, I don't know exactly who's sliding out, but there should be 2 more AL East teams in that top 5, in my opinion. The Yankees, like I said, I mean, call me a homer if you want. But I think more than likely they're sitting at 5 or 4, due to the fact that they have caught up to now the Rays, who are the leaders in the AL East. I believe they're like 8-2 or 9-1 in the last 10 games, so they're pretty hot right now. We got the White Sox, who are sitting at 3rd, who the Yankees just swept. So the fact that they're sitting up there higher than the Yankees with, I believe, a worse record or a similar record, it might be the exact same right now. The fact that we just swept them.
So it's slightly worse. So the Yankees are 28-19, White Sox are 27-19.
Oh, exactly. Okay, so there you go. The fact that we now have a better record than them and have just swept them, I think, is enough to say that we belong higher in the rankings. I mean, I feel like that makes sense. And also the Rays, I'll give them their dues as well because, like I said, the Sox are no longer in first place in the AL East. That belongs to the Rays. And they have the second best record in baseball. The Padres are sitting atop baseball in the NL at 30-18. The Rays are 30-19, I believe it is. So honestly, they might belong up in that 2 spot, especially because they're on a 10-game win streak right now. So I mean, they're genuinely the hottest team in baseball, other than maybe the Padres. Even the Padres, I believe, are at 9, and the Rays are at 10 in terms of win streak. So I'd slide the Yankees and the Rays in there. Otherwise, it's not a bad top 5. I mean, there's some solid baseball teams this year. Obviously, a lot of very good teams, but I feel like those 2 other AL East teams definitely belong in there.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I didn't want to mention the Yankees because, like you said, I didn't want to be a homer. But I agree with you in the aspect of, because I personally had the White Sox in my top 5, but the Yankees just came off sweeping them, and that goes to show that was a statement, not only win, but statement of wins. Like, you just beat a top 5 team and not just beat them, you swept them in a series. So I think that's a big enough statement to push them in the top 5, but I would put them, if anything, at 5. I'm taking the Giants out of the top 5. I do think they're a top 10 team. They are on fire. I mean, they're definitely surprising some folks. So I do think they're a top 10 team. Top 5, I think, is pushing it at this moment. The Yankees aren't my selection, but if they're not 5, I'd probably say 6. But with the Yankees, taking the White Sox spot, I'm in agreement with you. My pick was the Rays. I think they have. You mentioned it. They have the second best record in baseball. They have the best record in the AL. So I feel like they're probably the most disrespected team at this given moment because they're not getting their credit. Even they're coming off of being the AL champion and then trading their ace away, and they're still proving that they still have the talent to compete and not just compete in the AL East, who's the best. You could say the best division of baseball at the moment, but they're competing in the entire MLB, and people are just as surprised as I am in regards to the performance that the Red Sox are putting up. So you could rank the Red Sox higher than the Rays, but it doesn't matter. I think the Rays deserve to be amongst that top five, those top five teams, especially with I don't want to butcher his last name, but Randy Rosarena.
Rosarena.
Yeah, I can't fucking pronounce that. Rosarena, I think Randy Rosarena. All right, that works. That works. So he's heating up, and in his last 8 games, he's hitting three like 351 with 2 doubles, 3 homers, and 9 RBIs. So he's a big reason why this team is just took over first place in the AL East. Like their pitching is doing their job, and their hitting is just coming around and making everything blend, and that's why they're as balanced as they are. So if I had to take away 2 teams out of that top five, it would be the White Sox and the Giants. More so the Giants, but you made a good statement about why the Yankees should be higher than the White Sox.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like you said, the AL East. I mean, like I said, more so the Rays than the Yankees even, and I'm a Yankees fan saying that, but it's true. Like you said, the best record in baseball and probably the hardest division, and the fact that there could possibly be 3 teams in the top 5 of the power rankings by next week for the AL East speaks to how good of a division it really is.
It really sucks for teams like the Blue Jays, because the Blue Jays coming into the season, coming off of last season at that, they had an optimistic, off season. They had, really good young talent going into the season, and then you go in and you add George Springer this offseason, which was a huge signing, and they had big expectations, but they didn't expect to be chasing the Red Sox. They were expecting to be, at worst number 3, and chasing the Rays and the Yankees. They knew the Yankees were going to be good, but they didn't. They figured, the Rays were going to be teetering in that area just because they're coming off an AL championship. But the Red Sox performing as good as they are hurts their case, because now they're sitting at 4th in the division at 500 exactly, and they're 5.5 games out of first place. And 5.5 games isn't terrible when you're 50 games in, especially when you're getting your best player and George Springer back. But it's not a comfortable situation that you want to be in, because you are ultimately chasing instead of being in the running.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you got in the division, like even further. I mean, just the fact that the teams are so hot right now. I mean, the Rays are in a 10-game win streak. Who's to say if and when that's going to end, or even if it does end tomorrow, who's to say they don't still stay hot, as well as the Sox, as well as the Yanks. I mean, each one of these teams is in their last 10 games is, I mean, the Rays are 10-0. Like I said, the Yankees are 8-2 or 9-1. The Sox are, I believe, 7-3 or 8-2 as well. So I mean, to be able to take that many games out of a 10-game stretch, it's going to be hard for the Blue Jays to catch up and keep up with that, even when they get Springer back. So.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
so
being down, like you said, playing catch up. I mean, you're gonna really have to rely on these teams losing a lot more, even regardless of what you're doing. You know what I mean?
And it's not like they're on the downspin, like you said. They're hot. So who's to say that gap doesn't get bigger? So it just sucks for a team like Toronto. Like I said, they have a promising future in the prospects that they have on their team. So it's as a Yankee fan, I don't really care. But as a baseball fan, I care. I mean, that's a up and coming team that you want to see obviously succeed down the road. Especially with Springer being, from our hometown. I'm always rooting for the guy, except when he plays the Yankees, because he kills the Yankees every single time. But to speak on not only the top 5 of the power ranking, the bottom 5. So amongst the bottom 5 at 30. Is the Pirates with a record of 18-28. 29 is the Rockies with a record of 19-29. 28 is the Orioles with a record of 17-30. 27 is the Tigers with a record of 18-29. And then the Twins is sitting at 26 with a record of 18-29. So before I ask you about your thoughts, I just want to obviously pinpoint how the Twins are in the bottom 5, and they were just a playoff team last year. It's just it's crazy to see how the tides have turned in a sense. But after mentioning that, what are your thoughts on the bottom five? Is it time for these teams to panic? Even just being 50 games into the season, give or take, and if you had a like if you want to throw in any other teams that deserve to be mentioned amongst the worst teams in baseball, go ahead.
Nah, that top five's. I mean, it's a pretty solid five. I mean, to say is it time for these to panic? Not necessarily. Um, and I mean, you mentioned the Twins, who is a playoff team, and we know how much firepower that they have. I mean, they call them the Bomba Squad for a reason. They can hit it out of the park. They have a lot of good hitters. And they had a very good bullpen. It was kind of always, I mean, they have a few good stars as well, but it was always really their pitching that they kind of struggled with. They couldn't really keep up with the bullpens of the Yankees and the Dodgers and the likes of those teams, the Astros as well. So it was difficult for them. But like I said, I still think a team like that, or even the Colorado Rockies, who I don't believe they were in the playoffs last year, but another roster that has enough talent to really get the job done. Obviously, 50 games in is not in the position you want to be, but I think these teams have more than enough talent to kind of turn it around and at least fight for, a playoff spot later down the road, even if it might have to be a wild card. It's going to be a little tougher for a team like the Twins, though, than it would be for, say, the Rockies, due to the fact that, like we said, the AL seems so stacked right now, and just in the AL East alone, I mean, we might see 3 teams in a race for playoffs in the AL East. So that might be tough for the Twins to kind of sneak in and take one of those wild cards. But for a team like the Rockies, aside from the fact that they're in a good division, I think there's still possibilities for them to be able to come back and try to steal a wild card. Like I said, it's a little tough. It's more dependent on, really, like we said, it's kind of like the Blue Jays. You don't want to be playing that catch up, especially when teams are hot. But when you have such firepower and like talent like the Twins and the Rockies do, I have no doubt in my mind that they could turn around the season. It's just more a matter of fact of, is it too late? Are all these other teams going to stay hot, or is somebody going to slip and fall? Are you going to be able to kind of make up some ground somewhere? So really, they just got to go out there and do what they have to do, win their games, worry about them. But aside from that, I think Colorado Rockies and Twins are more than capable of doing that. It's just, like I said, at that point, it's more so, is there going to be ground to be made up from other teams, or is it just over already at this point?
So I'll start off like this. So amongst the 5 teams that I mentioned in the bottom 5, I only think one of those teams should panic, and I think that's the Twins, and that's mainly because they were just a playoff team last year, and now they're like, just the other day they had the worst record in baseball. And they were playing the White Sox, and they put a position player to pitch, and they were complaining that the White Sox players were swinging at a 3-1 count and hit a home run.
Yeah.
But and they were down I think 15-2 or something like that. Like, why? I get it's the unwritten rule of baseball, or a unwritten rule of baseball, but you just put a position player into pitch, down 15 to whatever. And you're complaining about the other team hitting. Like, the game's gotta, finish. They gotta play to the end of the game, whether you want. If not, then put a, CC Sabathia recommended it. If that's the case, then put a mercy rule in place, which no one really wants to do. But if you're gonna complain about it, then just put a mercy rule in place. But
And I mean,
with the Twins, though, I just feel like they're the one team amongst these teams that can turn around and possibly make the playoffs. So the reason why I say they should panic is because they need to make some changes to turn things around. They have some promise within the organization, so it's not like they're a bunch of scrubs.
Yeah, no, well, I agree, and I think the fact that another thing that makes it so hard for the Twins is a team that we were just talking about. Obviously, we were talking about maybe sliding them out of the power rankings, possibly, and the Yankees taking their spot, but I mean, still, the fact that the White Sox are top of your division, they're a very good baseball team. There's a reason that they're top 5 right now. So that's another thing that makes it so hard for a team like the Twins is, although they do have the talent, they do have the firepower, they do need to make some changes, but it's a possibility for them. But I can agree in the sense that maybe it's time for them to panic and them alone, just due to the fact that you got to look at who's at the top of your division. And And when it comes to making up that ground, that means you're going to have to take some of those games away from them. And when you're struggling to beat the team that's the top of your division, it's going to be hard to turn around your season. You know what I mean? Regardless of who you're beating elsewhere, you're going to have to beat that team atop the division, make up some of that ground. Because unless they win this division, I don't think that they're going to be able to scoop a wild card. Like I said, the AL East is so stacked.
But that's why I mean that's what I'm saying is like we're 50 games in. We're 50 games into a 162 season, and I'm keep mentioning 50 games because it's still early.
100%.
Like it's still we haven't even reached like All-Star break. There's plenty of time to make up some ground. So when I say panic, I just say it's time to look at your team on paper and figure out what are your flaws and how can you fix those flaws.
Yeah.
Like if I was the GM, I'd be calling around the league trying to grab some of these players that are on the chopping block, or just try to inquire about some players that can possibly help us win some ball games. Because they do have some talented players on their team. Like there's I forget the center fielder's name, Byron Buxton, I think
Buxton,
it is. Yeah, but Byron Buxton. He's playing really well. And he's like their best player. Donaldson, their third baseman, he's playing well too. They just can't get it done. And like the other day, they just won their first game in extra innings. So now their record in extra innings is 1-8. So that's a big issue on why they're there, or like why they're where they are, is because they can't get it done, especially when the game goes beyond regulation. So you got to look at your team and just try to figure out what it is to help you turn things around. But to mention the Rockies, you mentioned it. They're playing it in a hard division. I mentioned the Rockies this offseason. Didn't expect much from them, so I'm not surprised that they're in the bottom 5. That's why I mentioned possibly the Yankees going after Trevor Story this offseason. I mentioned it, but Trevor Story's still an option to get rid of and collect some prospects. Because I mentioned it is like you're holding on to him and you're going to waste his prime and get nothing for him when you're in a division that I only mentioned at the time the Padres and the Dodgers, but now the Giants are on fire too, and I mentioned it before, they're a top 10 team. No. So you're sitting right now in 4th place, but you're fighting the Diamondbacks for 5th place at this point in your division. So it's like
wouldn't win ahead. So
exactly. So it's not surprising that they're there, but it's time to just give it up at this point. And I'm surprised that the Diamondbacks aren't in the bottom 5 because they do have one of the worst records in baseball. I think it's between them and the Orioles. I think the Orioles slight them by a little bit.
I think all these teams are about a game separate. It's either 17, 18, or 19 wins.
Yeah.
Max.
So I have a team in mind. I don't think they're bottom 5, but they're definitely bottom 10. And I want to just mention them because we mentioned them in a previous episode that we talked about baseball. The Los Angeles Angels. I want to mention them. Why? Because they have 2 of the most entertaining baseball players on their roster. Yet they are underperforming once again. I mean, they're sitting at the 5th place in the last place in the division. No surprise there. They're at 20-27. They have Trout, who's the best player in baseball. And then you have Ohtani, who's playing at an MVP level, not only on the field and in the batter's box, but on the mound. Like the dude's a two-way player, literally, and he's literally doing everything you could possibly ask him to do. And they still haven't performed. Like their pitching is probably the worst it's been since Trout's been on the team, and they tried to fix that this offseason with some acquisitions that they made, but it just hasn't seemed to pan out. I mean, the top guy that they acquired this offseason has like a ERA of above 7. Like it's just not working out. So it's similar, to what I said about the Twins. Like, look at your roster. Your issues have been, evident for years. It's been your pitching.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you want to give Trout some help offensively, which you have with getting Otani, but your pitching isn't there. And with Joe Madden there, he's a really good coach. He's got championship experience, so he knows the kinds of players that he needs to win a championship. And you can't tell me if you're Joe Madden and you're looking at your roster and think like we're gonna win. Like no, you might have two of the best players in baseball, but if you can't prevent the other team from scoring so many runs, you can only score so many on a given day, especially during this season with the probably no, not probably. It's one of, if not the worst, batting average all time. It's at like an all time low. So the MLB batting average is currently 234, which is awful. So if the batting average is that low on average, the best way to win games is to prevent the other team from scoring so many points. But if one of your pitchers is throwing an ERA of above 7, chances of you winning are slim.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's tough for the Angels because they do have a lot of talent. I mean, we mentioned, like you said, Otani, who they've been putting in the lineup quite frequently. Obviously, Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon. They have Jose Iglesias. So they have a talented team. But it is really just the pitching. They really have no solid starting pitchers to note other than Otani. But yeah, when you have like probably arguably the greatest player to ever touch a bat, you know what I mean, to pick up a glove, and Mike Trout. I mean, at this point, it's almost solidified. I mean, because he's still got plenty of years to go, and he's just been a stud his entire career. So, arguably the greatest player ever. People already calling Otani a GOAT in his first few years. But to have one of the worst records in baseball is that's insane. To have two of the best players in baseball, yet you have one of the worst records in baseball. It's like you said. I mean, they just need to start addressing the obvious, and it's their pitching, because I just named off a few players that are more than solid. You know what I mean? It's not just Trout, it's not just Otani in that lineup. Like they have a lot of solid players, but they just can't prevent runs. Otani's the only one really doing so, and even then, his ERA isn't. I mean, it's impressive. It's very impressive, especially for a guy who's playing so high a level on offensively and defensively. Defensively, it's impressive, but overall, it's not all that astounding. I think his ERA is just above 2 or so. Like I said, it's not bad. 2 is not a bad ERA, but when that's probably your best pitcher, I don't know that's what you want. You know what I mean?
So the player I was mentioning about them acquiring this offseason was Jose Quintana. Yeah. That was supposed to be a really good acquisition in the offseason. At the time, I thought it was a really good acquisition. But right now, he's pitched 8 games this season. He's 0-3 with an ERA of 7.92. Like that's almost 8. Like he's only got 45 strikeouts. Like, and he's not your ace by any means, but if that's your third pitcher in your rotation or whatever, that's not good. And no. I mean, pitching has been an issue for some time. And there's a few. So right now, I believe MLB.com has them sitting at 20, if I'm mistaken. 23. They have them at, or no, that's CBS. They have them sitting somewhere in the 20s. So there's, I think, between 20 and 23. But you can't tell me that some of these teams that are, let's say the Twins, God forbid, like they want to call it quits. You can't tell me you can't call up the Twins, who have in years past have had really good success with their pitching, and inquire about one of their pitchers to possibly improve your pitching. Like there's so many opportunities. Like when I mentioned Trevor Story already, that's just a field player. Now just think of these teams on the downspin. Like you can try to hit up the Reds for I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. The Yankees tried to inquire about him before.
Didn't the Reds just get him this offseason? I forget. No. I forget his name.
Hold on, I'm looking it up right now. It's a Jose Jose. I'm trying to think of his last name.
The only Jose I'm thinking of
Oh
is
no, Jose.
Jose,
It's
which is
Luis.
Jose
Luis.
Barrios.
It's Luis Castillo. You
Mm.
can't tell me you don't want to. You can't call up the Reds and inquire about Jose Castillo. Like he's only doing bad because he's on the fucking Reds. The Reds are 20-25. They're just as bad as you. Like the Pirates have had success about trading certain players, certain pitchers. Yankees have two of them. I mean, you can do so much. Like, oh, perfect. The Nationals. No, the Nationals are underperforming. They're talking about Max Scherzer being on the trade block. Yes, he's old. He's like 37 years old, but he's still a top performing pitcher. You can't tell me you can't reach out to them and get Max Scherzer. Like that alone, I'm not saying that would answer all their problems, but that alone can make or break a team. It's going to influence the rest of the pitching staff, the rest of the personnel in the pitching, because now they're going to look at someone that has championship experience and they're going to want to put their best foot forward. He's going to be able to help them tweak part of their game to be better. It's like almost when the Astros had Cole, Verlander, and Greinke on the roster at one time.
Yeah.
You're in the same room with some of the best in the game, and they're gonna help you tweak certain parts of your game. They're gonna push you to be your best, and that's gonna be. It's also gonna lead for the best result for the team.
No, I completely agree. I mean, in addition, like Max Scherzer for a team like the Angels is huge, because adding an ace like that immediately to your pitching staff, again, like you said, when you already got a stud like Otani, and you have a lot of these guys who you hope to kind of, like Quintana, who you hope to have a good season, just putting him around a guy like Max Scherzer is going to be huge. And like we said, we know that their offense is an issue. I mean, we know they got Trout, they got Justin Upton, they got Dexter Fowler. They have plenty of guys, so there's not a lack of talent there. They have so much talent there. So I completely agree. Just adding a guy like Max Scherzer would give their team a lot more wins. Just adding that one person. So again, like you said, it wouldn't hurt to call around other teams. Maybe you acquire Max Scherzer. Maybe you deepen your bullpen a little bit somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of teams that would answer that call, especially when you have plenty of talent to go around on the Angels. To kind of give up and
crazy.
go after that pitching.
It's crazy too because they're sitting in last place in the division at 20-27, but they're only 7 games out of first place. Like the first place team in their division is the Oakland A's, and they're 28-21. Like you're still in arm's reach, so it's not like you don't have the talent to make that push. But if you go make the changes to your pitching staff, like and acquire someone like a Max Scherzer, you can't tell me that can't make the difference of those 7 games. Like the dude's going to win you some ball games because he's going to limit the opposing team from scoring so many points on the days that he is on the mound, and then you have the personnel offensively with Rendon, Trout, Otani to perform and put up enough runs to win you a game. Like that's all you need, and that's the only reason why I mentioned them. Is like it's almost like a never-ending cycle with these guys. Like you had the best player in baseball for years, and he hasn't even reached the playoffs. But then now you have 2 of the most entertaining players in baseball, and you're still not doing enough. It's just I'm just tired of it.
Yeah.
But to get to our last topic of the day, it's been an interesting year with the no hitters. So thus far there have been 6 no hitters in the MLB thus far in 2021. 1 no hitter. So we've pretty much seen 1 no hitter every 124 games, or about every 9 to 10 days, and that's just because we're only 50 games in and have 6 no hitters thus far. Is like it's never been seen before. So it just took 42 days for baseball to reach 6 no hitters this season, and it's never before has baseball reached that mark so soon. Clayton Kershaw went ahead and said that so many no-nos is bad for baseball. So my question to you is there such thing as too many no-nos? And
No.
has the no hitters have they lost their luster? Is it not as big of an achievement as it has been in years past?
No, I disagree. I disagree 100% with that. I mean, Clayton Kershaw saying that. I mean, as a pitcher, like I understand where he's coming from. He's kind of saying like too many no hitters is bad for baseball. I guess he's assuming that that makes it look like a no hitter is. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's that much easier to achieve. You know what I mean? Like it means nothing at all. Like in my opinion, I don't think that it means that a no hitter is less impressive. It doesn't mean that it's any easier to get. It's still probably one of the harder things to do in baseball, aside from a perfect game, which is I mean, like how much harder a perfect game is to get than just a no hitter.
Yeah,
It's like it that is obviously very difficult to do, but a no hitter in itself is very difficult to do. But I think what Clayton Kershaw is saying, I think he's just mistaken in the fact that I just think we're living in probably the best era we've ever seen in baseball in terms of pitching. I mean, really, this is probably literally the best like farm of pitchers we've ever seen in baseball. I mean, just like the stuff that these guys are throwing is insane. I
yeah,
mean, I follow all these pages on social media all the time of like Pitchers Nation and like just the movement that the pitchers are like the movement on pitches that pitchers are able to do now is like something we've never seen. They're
yeah.
literally throwing disgusting stuff, and I've never seen like movement on a baseball like I've seen like this season and in the past few seasons. But like I said, I just think in general like we're seeing like the best pitchers in baseball we've ever seen, like the best group of pitchers in baseball we've ever seen at once. I mean, just think
For
about the
sure.
names of guys that we have currently in this era. It's like Jacob deGrom, Garrett Cole, Trevor Bauer, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, like Shane Bieber. Like every team's got nearly two aces on it in baseball. Not every team, but some teams have
At
this.
all the
Some
top
team,
teams,
yeah,
all
yeah.
the top
Some
teams.
some some teams have three of them. You know what I mean? Like some teams have three. Most teams have two. Obviously, like, but that's what I'm saying. There's enough aces for each team to maybe have two, but every top team has about two or three of them. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. It's just insane. The stuff that pitchers are throwing nowadays is crazy. I think these are the most like the best pitchers we've ever seen. They're throwing the fastest stuff. They're throwing the most disgusting stuff. They're just
yeah,
better pitchers, and I just think that's all it really boils down to.
yeah. So I mentioned thus far there's been 6 no hitters. So the MLB record for no hitters in the season since 1900 is 7, and that's happened 4 times, which was 1990, 1991, 2012, and 2015. So we're one away from tying it, and they're saying at this rate we'd finish the season with 19 no hitters.
At this rate, that's not going to happen.
At this rate, it's bound to slow down, but at this rate, it's gonna be 19. Do I see 19? No,
I don't think it goes over 10.
I disagree. I think I'm looking at like 11 for the
I
season.
think I think it stops at 10.
I think 11 is the number. I think 11 is the number. Um, um, but just to pinpoint, like the reason why I don't see this happening or the rate happening is because I feel like the offensive side of baseball is gonna kick in. It's gonna teams are gonna get a groove. Like a lot of the teams, like we mentioned, the Rays and the Yankees, they're just getting hot now. Like they're turning things around slowly but surely. You got to think about it too. Last season, these teams didn't play anyone outside of their division, so like they're not out of their division, out of their demographic areas or what have you. So it's kind of hard to now adjust to playing other personnel, other teams in a sense. So I think it's just a slow start, but it's going to be a strong finish for a lot of folks. So I'm expecting the rate to slow down, but I'm not expecting no hitters to stop happening. So I don't think that the achievement is diminished by any means. I still think it's a great accomplishment. You even said it. None of these guys have reached a perfect game yet, and that's a great feeling. all these no hitters that we've had have had us all at the edge of our seats. We still get notified when there's a no hitter happening or possible no hitter happening, which is still great to see as well. But we could have been tied already with the record. So Bumgarner, Madison Bumgarner, he threw a no hitter, but it was in a 7-inning game because it was a back-to-back. So his technically doesn't count because no hitters count for only 9 games. I mean, for 9-inning games. So, which sucks for him. But technically, we have the record tied, but it's not. It doesn't count in the books. But it's tough, and it's partially because of, like I mentioned before, the batting average being at an all-time low. It's at 234. So the team's average only 7.8 hits per game, which only in 1908 they saw fewer hits per game, which was 7.75. With 9 strikeouts among the 33 at-bats per game, a team needs to defend only 24 balls in play. That's mind-boggling, and that's part of it is because what you said. The personnel at pitching or at pitcher right now is the best the best we've ever seen, but as a collective. But it's also because hitting is at the all-time worst we've ever seen. So it's a mixture of both. So I think that's why. People tend to blame it on the shift in baseball. I tend to disagree. I actually like the shift in baseball because it's a competitive advantage. It adds strategy to it. So now if you see a team shifting to the right as an offensive player, that should encourage you to hit to the left. It's supposed to help you become more well-rounded. So people tend to blame it on the shift, saying it's harder for teams to hit, which it is. And it drops, batting average down by like 12 points or whatever. I don't want to hear that. I think the accomplishment itself is still great for baseball. And batters just need to figure out how to be more strategic. Try to hit out. You see that they know you pull in a certain direction. Try to prove them wrong and help your team win.
No, I agree, and I mean, you can kind of blame it on a lot of things, but I just think, just people got to kind of look at the changes in baseball. I mean, that really is all it boils down to. You can say what you want about it, about a no hitter not being as great, but I mean, just think about it's the same thing that we're seeing with home runs. We're seeing more. We're seeing baseball is the long game now. I mean. The long ball runs baseball currently. Teams are hitting way more. The whole league is hitting more home runs than we've ever seen before. So you also have to take that into account as well. I mean, yeah. We're having a lot more home runs than we've ever seen, in addition to that, that's making us see a lot more strikeouts than we've ever seen before too, because a lot more guys are whiffing, a lot more guys are trying to take those baseballs deep. And that's when you catch them. That's when you catch them swinging at those those off-speed pitches and those and things like that. Those sliders. So
they're trying to swing for the fences, and instead of putting contact on the ball, they're trying to hit it out of the stadium, and it doesn't always work that way. But people have proposed the commissioner look at it and possibly put it in his own hands and making a change to baseball with possibly pushing the mound back a little bit. I don't want to see that. I mean, they're talking about banning the shift in baseball, which maybe I wouldn't say ban. If you want to, strategically, limit to how many shifts you could do per game, go ahead. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I'd rather just have teams be able to freely do it. They didn't have an issue when only a few teams were doing it, but now that every team does it, it seems to be an issue. Do I like seeing, 3 to 4 3 of the 4 players in the infield on one side of the infield? No, but it's the strategic part of baseball. Baseball is very strategic. So you got to just try to out-strategize your opponent. It's almost like football when you with your defensive scheme, you're trying to, what is it called? You're trying to you're trying to like cover up what you're actually going to do, like what coverage you're doing. So you're kind of trying to trick the opposing quarterback.
Yeah, you're just disguising your play.
Yeah, you're disguising your play. So, but then but that's to do it so you can out strategize your opponent and ultimately do what you were trying to do to begin with. With this shift, it's almost the same thing. You're not disguising it because obviously it's blatant what you're doing, but if you're as an offensive player, you should feel some sort of disrespect and try to, do something about it. That's what I say. Like, if you have a problem with it, then do something about it. Don't try to change the rules to for your liking.
No, I completely agree. I think, I mean, we got to a certain point where a lot of baseball fans want a lot of changes in the game, make baseball more fun, this, that, and the third. Cool, but now I just feel like people are trying to change too much about it. And it's like you can only do so much. I think there are certain things with the timing of the games and how long they are, how long pitchers are taking to pitch and get out of their routine and throw pitches. Like, oh, we need to get that time down. Pitchers are taking way too long. Like, you know what I mean? Things like that. Like, that makes sense. I get it. Like, people are taking too long. The game is taking forever because of it. I get it. But there's just certain things like the shift. It's a part of baseball. Baseball has always been a game of, repetition. It's a game of, like you said, it's just very tactical game. I mean, it's a game of the mind as well as it is for skill. You know what I mean? It's a game of thinking. It's not just going out there hitting a ball, fielding it. Like, it is what it is. If a team is shifting against you, then you got to figure out how the hell if they're shifting all the way to the right. How am I going to hit this left? How am I going to hit this all the way through the left side of the field? How am I going to hit this to the gap? And those are things that players are going to start, taking into account. Yeah, and that's what players are going to start having to take into account when they're playing. You know what I mean? It's like, if this team's going to shift and put all their players on the right side of the infield, I'm smacking into the infield. I mean, to the left side of the infield. And now my single is a double.
Or if anything, you could bunt it. Bunt 100%. It to the left side.
That's what I'm saying. Now my single's a double or even a triple. I mean, so it's just it's always, that's a part of baseball. It's always been a part of baseball. I feel like it should always be a part of baseball.
I just feel like people are just ball hurt.
At this point, like I said, you just can't try to change too much of the game, because then at that point it's like it's not the game anymore. You're changing the game. You know what I mean? It's like certain things I get.
It's not what everyone fell in love with.
Yeah. It's
not the game everyone fell in love with.
That's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes some things are okay. I get it, but sometimes you're just doing too much. And at this point, I feel like people are doing too much. It's like, it is what it is. Figure it out. You know what I mean? If they're going to shift all the way to the right, figure out a way to hit the ball left.
Yeah, so it's almost like...
Learn how to switch it.
There's, amongst all the bad things in life, we forget to celebrate the good. And in this case, everything in baseball is going bad with, the batting average and things of that nature. So now that there's been 6 no-hitters and it's ultimately the year of the no-no, we forget to celebrate it or we question whether we should celebrate it because...
Or we question the legitimacy of it.
It's like, just celebrate it. Appreciate what you're witnessing, what you're watching.
Records are meant to be broken.
Instead of criticizing. Yeah, records aren't meant to be held forever unless, the record is just crazy.
Insane.
But it's sooner or later.
7 no-nos throughout the year is very surprising. I will say that. Because if like to say that that's the record, and to say that that's from what year you said, like 1900s.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. Like the early 1900s. Like, that's insane. Like, to say that you have.
It's been tied a few times, but never broken.
160 game seasons between 30 teams. All those games, you only get 7 no-nos.
Yeah, but think about it. Think about it though. Oscar Robertson in the NBA had the record for triple doubles, and no one ever expected expected someone to average a triple double in a season. Russell Westbrook went ahead and did it.
Yeah, no.
Then he did it again, and now he owns the record for most triple doubles ever, and he's still got years to come. So that he's gonna blow that record out of the water by the end of his career, and now that record is gonna be hard to break.
Yeah.
But who's to say that record doesn't ever get broken?
100%, and not only that, but I mean, that's the perfect example, and not even just the way you put it, but like it's kind of the same. It's the same thing. Like people are questioning the legitimacy of it. Like as soon as Russell did it, he's the first one to ever average a triple double throughout a season, right? And it was like, oh my god, like it's never been done before, right? He just averaged a triple double throughout a whole season. Then he did it again, and it was like, wait, he's stat sheet stuffing or something. It's like last year he was MVP for he's the best player in the league. Now this year it's like, oh, he just did it again. Like this he sucks because he's averaging a triple double. Like he's not good because he's averaging a triple double. Like he's going out there and stuffing the stat sheet now, but before he was the league MVP. It's weird.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just got amongst the bad, you gotta appreciate the good, and the good is appreciate greatness while you see it. Appreciate like what you're watching. It's like amazing in the sport.
100%.
In the sport. So hey, records are, like you said, records are meant to be broken, whether it's immediately or down the road. It's like as a collective, we're seeing the greatest athletes we've seen in all of sports. Like in the NBA, it's the most athletic players we've ever seen. In the MLB, you mentioned it. As a collective, we're seeing the best pitchers we've ever seen.
Best hitters, really, too. I mean, obviously, like you said, the averages are down, but I mean, that's crazy. They're one of the most home runs we've ever seen. Like, dudes are breaking the home run records in a season by a lot. So
yeah, and it was crazy too. It was the Twins and the Yankees broke the record in one season, but and they were competing for who ultimately will hold the record.
Yeah, hold the new record. And who yeah, it's weird.
It's just almost like people are just trying to find something to complain about. Just play and enjoy. If you're a player, just play and hope that you're in the record book one day. Yeah. And then as a fan, just appreciate what you're watching. I mean,
100%.
It's amazing to watch, and just it sucks because Kluber threw the no-hitter, and I missed it, and I was so mad because I was too busy watching the Lakers playing game against the Warriors that I wasn't. Unfortunately, I was too worried about my team making the playoffs that I forgot about the regular season game from my other team, and I happened to miss something. So I was so I was happy the Lakers end up winning that game, but I was upset that I missed the Kluber thing. I was like, damn. Yeah. I wish I watched that.
I feel that same thing happened to me. I was watching the Lakers when I found out about the Kluber no-hitter, but it is what it is. I mean, it's history. That's the first Yankees no-hitter since, I think they said, 1907, some wild shit like that.
Well, it's been some time. But before we go, I want to mention, we've been mentioning there's been 6 no-hitters in baseball this season thus far, but just think about it. 2 of them have been against the Rangers. 2 of them have been against the Mariners.
Yeah.
And 2 of them have been against Cleveland.
Okay.
So literally, it's only the 6 no-hitters have been against 3 teams. 3 amongst the 30.
That's something I didn't know. So
it's literally happened twice to 3 teams this season. So Musgrove, the Padres pitcher Musgrove, he did against the Rangers on April 9th. White Sox pitcher Rodon did against Cleveland April 14th. Baltimore's pitcher Means threw a no-hitter against the Mariners May 5th. The Reds no-hitter Miley threw it against Cleveland May 7th. And the Tigers and Kluber, the Tigers pitcher Turnbull and the Yankees pitcher Kluber, both in the same week, pitched it. Turnbull was against the Mariners. Kluber was against the Rangers. Both were great. It was just crazy because they happened in back-to-back days. It was May 18th and May 19th. Kluber's was nice because it was against his former team, the team he played for the previous season against the Rangers. But Turnbull was really good because he was amongst last season. He didn't have a really good season. It was bad. So for him to have this moment, I'm happy for him. But it's just crazy to see. It's only been against 3 teams. So we mentioned, this pace is going to stop unless these 3 teams tend to continue getting no hitters against. So
clearly they can't hit. So
hey, it's sad because two of them are in the same division.
Oh man.
It's that AL West. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's pretty bad.
It's something in that water.
Jesus, that's pretty bad. I didn't know that though. That's funny. Same three
All right,
teams.
but that's all we have for you guys today. It's the year of the no, as you can see. But we're happy that you guys tuned in and you stayed this long. Stay tuned. We're gonna have a bonus episode this month dropping before the end of the month. We promised you bonus episodes, so we'll try to squeeze it in there some way somehow. So just stay tuned for that. And hey, I guess I gotta say it since we're recording on the 25th.
Hey,
Happy birthday to our homie over there at the Expansion Pack Podcast, May 25th himself,
our boy
Chris.
Chris.
You know, I gotta say it, yo.
We made 25th and out here.
Stay May 25th and out here, all right?
Stay May 25th and out here. And for today and today only, because aside from today, I ain't with it. But today and today only, we're all a part of the Rod Squad. So let's go.
You heard it here. You heard it here first. Rod Squad, May 25th and hey. But shout out to our guys at the Expansion Pack Podcast. Go check them out. Go show love. They just dropped the episode. So go tune into that. But until next time, peace.
Peace out.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.